I never planned to fall for her, and she never planned to trust me. But one sentence from her closest friend changed everything. "You have no idea what you mean to her." I didn't notice her the way a man notices a woman he wants. Nothing dramatic, no lightning bolts, no instant fantasies. I noticed her the way you notice a presence. A quiet gravity in the room that gently pulls your attention whether you approve or not. The evening was nothing special. A small gathering at a friend's house, soft music, dim warm lighting, people laughing in low circles. I was one of the younger ones there. 24, still finding my place in rooms filled with people who spoke confidently about mortgages, promotions, and school districts. I stayed mostly near the kitchen island, filling cups, nodding along, pretending I belonged. And then she walked in. Not loudly, not dressed to demand attention. She wore something simple, comfortable, maybe a soft sweater the color of autumn wheat, sleeves pushed slightly to her forearms. Her posture was relaxed but assured, the kind of confidence earned from surviving enough life to stop performing for it. She must have been around 40, give or take a few years. The first thing I noticed was her expression. Not the bone structure, not her hair, her expression. She listened, truly listened. When someone told a story, her eyes stayed steady on their face. She gave pauses, nods, and that little half-smile that made people feel heard. She didn't check her phone. She didn't wait for her turn to speak. She lived in each sentence offered to her. I watched her in fragments, never long enough to be obvious. She tucked her hair behind her right ear when she laughed. She pressed her lips together while thinking, as if words shouldn't be rushed into existence. When she finally stood near me, we exchanged a polite hello. That should have been nothing. But it didn't feel like nothing. Her eyes held mine a second longer than necessary. Not flirtatious, not evaluating. More like recognition, as though we shared some silent understanding neither of us could name. She asked simple questions, where I worked, what I studied, what I liked. But her tone made those questions sound meaningful, not small talk. Every time I answered, she seemed to pause before responding, like she wanted to make sure she understood rather than react. I remember the warmth of that moment, like there was enough space in her attention for me to settle into. We didn't stand close, but we didn't stand far. There was a comfortable middle distance, the kind where you can hear the softness of someone's voice without them raising it. The room behind her blurred into background noise. Clinking glasses, a playlist of mellow acoustic songs, laughter surfacing and fading. When she spoke to other people, I found myself glancing in her direction. Not out of longing, just curiosity. She never tried to dominate a group. She made space. People gravitated toward her without noticing they were doing it. I didn't think about attraction. I thought about ease, how rare it is to meet someone whose presence lowers the volume inside your mind. I told myself it was harmless, passing thought, pleasant interaction. She was older, composed, likely taken, and far beyond anything I should be analyzing. And yet when I left that night, walking out into the quiet street with the cool air brushing my skin, the image stuck with me. Her slight smile, her patient attention, the warmth behind her eyes. I shouldn't have been thinking about her, but I was. The second time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I wasn't dressed to impress anyone. Just a worn jacket, coffee-stained sleeve, another ordinary day. A mutual friend had invited a few people to a quiet cafe, low chatter, the smell of roasted beans, a rain-soaked street outside. I walked in expecting polite conversation and early exits. And then she was there, sitting near the window, elbows resting on the wooden table, a mug warming her hands. There's a specific expression people wear when they're holding themselves together. A calm surface over a tired current. She had that look. Not unhappy, not defeated, just reflective. I recognized it because I've worn it. When she saw me, her eyebrows lifted slightly, then settled into a soft smile. Not wide, not performative. More like, "Oh, you again." She gestured to the seat across from her. I didn't hesitate. I should have. But comfort moved quicker than thought. Our conversation didn't start with compliments or personal history. It began with something small, my work. I joked about feeling like an intern in my own life, overwhelmed, unsure whether I was moving forward or just orbiting the same failures. She didn't laugh at me. She laughed with recognition. Then she said something simple. Everyone feels lost in their 20s. Some just hide it better. There was no condescension in her tone. No teacher-student distance. Her voice felt leveled, sharing experience, not superiority. When she spoke about her own life, it wasn't curated. She mentioned stress at work, not being taken seriously, always being the one expected to handle things. She rolled her shoulders as if letting some of that responsibility slip for a moment. And we kept talking. About little coping mechanisms. Music, walks, the joy of being unavailable to the world for a while. She told me she sometimes drives with no destination, just for the comfort of movement. I admitted I sometimes sit in my car long after arriving home, delaying conversations or expectations waiting behind doors. It felt strangely intimate, connection built from the smallest truths. At some point, we leaned in without noticing. The cafe wasn't loud, but our voices softened anyway, like secrets demanded quieter volume. Her hand brushed the back of mine when she reached for her mug. No deliberate gesture, no continued pressure, just contact, warm, brief, unstartled. But I felt it, not as a spark, more like recognition. When mutual friends arrived, we shifted slightly apart, but something remained suspended in the space between us. An ease that didn't require explanation. I noticed people glancing between us, curious in their quiet ways. As conversations widened to the table, she didn't dominate or fade. She simply listened again. Eyes steady, shoulders relaxed, occasionally meeting my glance for a half-second that felt meaningful without intention. When she stood to leave, she touched my forearm gently. Not flirtation, just acknowledgement. It was good talking to you, she said, like she meant it. After she walked out into the misted light, I realized something unsettling. We weren't friends. We weren't close. We barely knew each other. And yet sitting with her felt like familiarity. The kind you shouldn't feel so soon. The kind that stays when nothing is said. Comfort shouldn't be accidental. But with her, it was. It's one thing to feel something quietly, privately, some gentle pull you can rationalize as coincidence. It's another thing when the room starts seeing it before you do. The third time I saw her, it was at a friend's place again. Casual, early evening, people filtering in with takeout bags and half-finished stories from their week. I came late, expecting nothing more than background noise and maybe a drink. She was already there, sitting on the arm of a couch, talking to someone older than me, her posture relaxed, legs crossed at the ankle, assured without trying. When she noticed me, the shift was small but unmistakable. Her shoulders loosened, her smile softened. Not brighter, just warmer. Enough that one of our friends raised an eyebrow at me like, huh. I tried not to read into it, but my feet moved in her direction before I made the choice. We talked. Not privately, not intensely, just easily. She asked how my week was. I asked how she slept. She joked about the joys of insomnia and middle-aged responsibility. Nothing about it sounded like flirting, and yet, something about it felt like connection. Later, while I poured myself a drink, my friend nudged me in that not-so-subtle way guys communicate curiosity with elbows instead of words. Since when are you too close? I laughed it off. I shrugged. I said something like, we just talk sometimes. But the comment lingered like a spotlight. Close? Were we? I glanced back toward her. She wasn't looking at me, but there was a certain care in how she interacted with others. She treated people with attention, with presence. Maybe I wasn't special. Maybe she was just built that way. But then she caught me looking, eyes meeting mine across the room. Not a long stare, just half a second too long to be random. She looked away with the faintest smile, like she'd interrupted a thought. That moment, silent, passing, felt crowded with interpretation. And something inside me tightened. Not excitement, hesitation. Because attention invites expectation, and expectation invites misunderstanding. Later in the night, a small group of us stood outside on the porch, letting the air cool our overheated conversation. She joined us. I shifted without thinking, leaving space near me. She stepped into it, shoulders close, enough that I could smell a hint of whatever she wore. Something subtle, maybe vanilla or sandalwood, the kind of scent you only notice when someone is near. We didn't talk directly. We didn't need to. The proximity said enough. Another friend, hers this time, smirked and said lightly, "You two seem pretty comfortable with each other." Her reaction was immediate, not dramatic, just a stillness. Her gaze lowered for a breath, her expression composed but aware. Not denial, not embarrassment, just caution. She stepped back, not far, just enough to reestablish neutral space. The conversation continued. The laughter returned. But an invisible line had been drawn. People noticing meant there was something to notice. And neither of us had language for what that something was. Driving home later, I caught myself replaying tiny details. The angle of her head when she listened, the way her knee turned slightly toward me, the soft reaction when someone called us comfortable. It wasn't romance. It wasn't longing. It was awareness, an unspoken understanding that whatever existed between us was visible. And visibility changes everything. Emotional intimacy doesn't arrive like a confession. It slips in through exhaustion when people forget to guard themselves. It was late when the room thinned out. The laughter faded first, then the clusters of conversation, until only a few stragglers remained, nursing drinks and unfinished thoughts. I was seated on the end of a couch, letting silence settle into my bones after a long week. She was across from me, leaning against a bookshelf, arms folded loosely. Not closed off, just steadying herself. Someone mentioned past relationships, a topic people usually treat like tabloid headlines, easy to mock, easy to forget. But for her, the question landed differently. She hesitated before speaking, eyes lowered as if the right words were hiding on the floor. I stayed too long with someone who preferred the idea of me, rather than me. She didn't sound bitter, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from being patient for too many years. The few people nearby didn't know what to say. For a moment, the room held a respectful quiet. Then conversations drifted elsewhere, lighter topics, safer zones. But her words hooked something in me. When we were finally alone in that corner, no audience, no playful interference, I asked gently, "What do you mean by the idea of you?" She exhaled, slow and steady. "Some people love the version of you that never disagrees, never gets sad, never needs anything. They love ease, not truth." Her voice didn't waver, but her fingers tightened around her glass. I didn't rush a response. I just let silence give her space. She continued only because she wanted to, not because I pulled. She told me she feared being too much, too emotional, too opinionated, too complicated. That life had trained her to apologize for having needs. That somewhere between youth and responsibility, she learned to shrink herself to be manageable. Not dramatic, just honest. Her vulnerability didn't frighten me. It grounded me, because I recognized the insecurity in another form, my own fear of not being enough. So I told her the truth, plain, unpolished, without intention. "I think you're someone people pay attention to, not because you demand it, because you make space for them." She blinked, surprised, not flattered, like she couldn't quite believe she deserved gentle words. Her eyes softened, and for the first time I saw something beneath her composure. Gratitude mixed with uncertainty. She set her glass down and rested her hand near mine on the couch cushion. Not touching, just close enough that warmth could bridge the gap if either of us breathed the wrong way. A minute passed, quiet, real. Then, almost accidentally, her fingers brushed mine. Not a woven hold, not a deliberate caress. Just contact, brief, human. She didn't pull away. She didn't apologize. She let the moment exist. And I felt the weight of it. Not romantic weight, not seduction. Just a woman allowing herself to be seen by someone with nothing to gain from misreading her. When she finally stood to leave, she placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Steady, warm, grounding. "Thank you," she said softly. Not for listening, but for not treating her vulnerability like spectacle. That night, I didn't think about age or attraction. I thought about how rare it is to meet someone who trusts you with pieces of themselves they usually hide. It wasn't romance. It was recognition, the kind that blurs lines before anyone realizes the lines ever existed. There's a strange kind of clarity that doesn't come from emotions. It comes from someone else witnessing them. It's uncomfortable, like a mirror held too close. It happened a few days after that quiet night where she let herself be vulnerable. I wasn't expecting to see her again so soon. Life had dropped me into an ordinary afternoon. Errands, unanswered emails, my mind looping through responsibilities like a scratched record. Then a message came from one of her closest friends, the same woman who had been observing us at gatherings, the one who always seemed to read dynamics before the rest of us caught up. She asked if I could meet her for a quick coffee. No explanation, no urgency, just a tone that suggested purpose. When I arrived, she was already seated, arms crossed loosely, one leg tucked under the other, studying the rim of her cup. Her presence didn't feel confrontational, but it did feel intentional. We made small talk because small talk is a way to delay truths. And then she looked directly at me. Steady gaze, softened by concern rather than accusation. "Can I ask you something? Directly?" I nodded, though some instinct inside me braced. "What do you think you're doing with her?" No malice. No anger. Just blunt curiosity. For a breath, I couldn't speak. I didn't have language for what existed between me and the woman her friend cared about. It wasn't dating. It wasn't flirting. It wasn't nothing, not anymore. So I answered honestly, "I like talking to her. That's all. It's just easy." Her friend shook her head gently, almost sadly. "It's not just anything for her." The words struck like a chord tightened too quickly. My shoulders tensed. I tried to push back, not defensively, just rationally. "I haven't promised anything. I haven't implied." She raised a hand, stopping me without force. "You don't have to promise anything." She notices who listens. She feels deeply. She doesn't hand emotional space to people unless they matter. Then she leaned forward, voice dropping, not for secrecy but for sincerity. "You have no idea what you mean to her." I felt my pulse in my throat. Not excitement, responsibility. Because those words reorganized every interaction I'd replayed in my head. Her friend wasn't warning me away. She wasn't accusing me of wrongdoing. She was doing something far more difficult. Protecting someone she loved from accidental damage. She told me that the woman I'd grown close to didn't let herself want things easily. That life had conditioned her to expect loss, to avoid risking hope. That when someone gave her attention without agenda, she began to believe in possibility again. And possibility for her was fragile. I sat with that weight. Every accidental brush of hands, every late-night conversation, every glance that lingered because neither of us knew what to do with it. I finally managed a quiet response. "I don't want to hurt her." Her friend nodded. "Then be honest, with her and with yourself. If you're drifting toward something, name it. If you're not, step back gently. But don't pretend your presence doesn't matter." We parted without resentment, without dramatics. Just clarity, uncomfortable, necessary clarity. Walking out of the cafe, the afternoon air felt heavier than earlier. I wasn't thinking about desire or attraction. I was thinking about responsibility, about emotional space, about the quiet power we hold over people when we offer understanding. That night, I didn't replay her laugh. I replayed the warning. "You have no idea what you mean to her." And I realized I needed to know. Not for myself, but for her. Clarity doesn't erase confusion. Sometimes it sharpens it. After her friend's words, I spent days carrying an invisible weight. Not heavy enough to break me, but impossible to ignore. I found myself editing memories. Every time her eyes softened when she listened, every unintentional touch, every pause between words that lasted one breath longer than casual conversation required. I didn't feel guilt. I felt responsibility. And responsibility demanded honesty. Not the cinematic kind, not a grand confrontation. Just two people speaking without shadows. So I texted her, asking if she wanted to walk. No agenda in the words, but she replied almost immediately, "Yes, I could use some air." We met at a park near her neighborhood. A quiet space where dusk softened the world into silhouettes. The sky was bruised purple, street lamps humming awake. She wore a light jacket and kept her hands in her pockets, as if unsure what to do with the rest of herself. We fell into step without discussion. Our strides matched effortlessly, like our bodies wanted to eliminate negotiation. For a few minutes, we talked about surface things, work frustrations, a movie she'd half-watched, the unpredictable moods of early spring weather. But conversations like that are placeholders. Eventually, the truth nudges its way in. I cleared my throat. Not dramatically, just enough to steady myself. I talked to your friend. She slowed, not stopping, but adjusting her pace as if preparing. Oh, yeah. She asked what I thought I was doing. A faint smile tugged at her mouth, dry, resigned. That sounds like her. She told me I meant something to you. The words hung there, not accusation, not triumph, just fact. She exhaled through her nose, a soft release that carried more than one emotion. She didn't rush to deny it. She didn't panic. She didn't apologize. Instead, she stopped walking and looked at me, not searching for escape, but for steadiness. I care, she said quietly, more than I should, and I hate that it shows. Her voice wasn't trembling. It was controlled, but with a tremor of risk beneath it. She looked away, toward a row of empty benches. People will talk. They already are. About what? About me being old enough to know better. She said it like an indictment she'd memorized long ago. Age had never been a point of tension for me, not until she framed it as shame. I stepped closer, not touching her, but eliminating unnecessary distance. I'm not embarrassed. She laughed under her breath, small and disbelieving. You say that now, but attention fades, curiosity fades, and one day people look at you and wonder why you settled for someone with a past instead of someone with potential. Her honesty wasn't self-pity, it was self-protection. That scared me more than anything. Not her age, not gossip, her assumption that she was a burden. So I answered the only way I could, without promises, without scripting a future. I care how this affects you, and I don't want to be thoughtless with something that matters. Her eyes flicked to mine, uncertain but softened. She swallowed, not dramatically, just visibly. I don't want this, she admitted, voice barely above breath. Not if it ends with me apologizing for existing. Her hands slipped out of her pockets, fingers open at her sides, tense but unhidden. I didn't reach for them, not yet. Instead, I said quietly, we don't have to decide a future. We just have to be honest about now. That line hit something inside her. Her shoulders eased, not relaxed, but loosened enough to breathe again. We began walking once more, slower, side by side, not touching, not clarity, not certainty, just two people acknowledging fear and choosing to keep walking anyway. Some endings don't feel like endings at all. They feel like two people choosing not to run. After that walk, after honesty took the place of guessing, we didn't rush toward each other. If anything, we slowed down. We let silence breathe between texts. We let days pass without overanalyzing them. Not distance, space. Space enough to understand what we were protecting. But inevitability has a rhythm. And eventually, you meet at the place where hesitation turns into choice. It happened on a quiet afternoon. We hadn't planned to see each other. I ended up near her building after finishing errands, and instead of overthinking, I called her. Not a message, not a vague invitation. A call. She answered on the second ring. Her voice sounded surprised but not guarded. Are you close by? She asked, like she was afraid of hoping too quickly. I am. There was a pause, not hesitation, just the small silence of someone deciding to be brave. Come upstairs. Her apartment was warm, lived in, scented faintly of clean laundry and citrus candles. Nothing dramatic, nothing polished for presentation, just her space quiet, soft, real. She wore something simple, sweatpants, a loose tee, hair tied back. No effort to impress, no armor to present. That alone said something. We sat on her couch, not touching, not angled toward each other like a staged moment, just nearby, comfortable enough to feel presence without pressure. For a while, we talked about small things, the kind of topics that fill time but aren't meant to distract. And eventually, she turned toward me, folding one leg beneath herself. I keep waiting for you to realize this is inconvenient. I shook my head. Maybe it is. Most meaningful things are. She studied my face. Not searching for answers, but confirmation that my words weren't impulsive. Then something shifted. Not a dramatic collapse, just a release of tension. Her shoulders lowered. She leaned back against the cushions. Her hand came to rest near mine, not reaching, just existing. I made the first move, not a kiss, not a pull. I let my fingers slide toward hers until they touched. Barely. The lightest connection. She didn't flinch. She didn't evaluate. She threaded her fingers slowly between mine. Not claiming, not clinging. Just choosing. Her eyes closed for a moment, forehead resting lightly against our joined hands. A small exhale escaped her lips, the kind people release when they stop bracing for disappointment. There was no confession of love. No cinematic promises. No lines about forever. Just presence. She lifted her head and met my gaze. Steady, grounded. If we do this, she said softly, we do it without pretending, without hiding, I added, and without apologizing. We didn't speak after that. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the air was already full. I shifted closer. Not chest to chest, not dramatic, just enough for my shoulder to touch hers. Her temple rested against the side of my head, a gentle lean that held gratitude, not possession. She wasn't claiming a future. I wasn't demanding certainty. We were choosing the next step, small, honest, mutual. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Before I stepped out, she placed her palm against my chest. Light, warm, familiar. Not to stop me, to reassure herself. Her voice was a whisper meant only for the inches between us. Whatever this becomes, thank you for not being afraid of it. I covered her hand with mine. Not gripping, just holding warmth against warmth. No running, I said. She smiled, not wide, not triumphant, just peaceful. Two people, not perfect, not defined, but together and unafraid of trying. If this story touched you, leave a comment and share your thoughts. Have you ever felt a connection that quietly changed you? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more slow-burn romances that explore love, vulnerability, and the beauty of emotional intimacy.